So the direct painting series has, it's going to be a bunch of different approaches to painting directly. And this is called the block-in method, and it's what I came up with when I was trying to figure out the best way for me to paint flowers on copper. So the idea is that you take this first layer and you get as organized as you can locally. And then once that first layer dries, then you can just do whatever you want, and you can finish things very, very quickly, and not have to worry about the colors around them, because even if they're not 100% right, they're still basically right, and that's what you'll see here. So this first layer, I have it on high speed here, but really it took me about a half an hour to block this in. And all I was trying to do was just get the shapes and the big values right. And that's pretty much it. I wasn't real concerned about any of the drawing. Just get the shapes where they need to be, and I'll do the drawing on the fly. Now this part is, I have a blending brush that I use. And, the first go at applying the paint's very, very rough. So in this passage here, I'm just blending everything smooth. And the reason for that is I want the paint to dry as quickly as possible. Now, blending it out maximizes the surface area that the paint has against the oxygen in the atmosphere, because oil paint dries by exchanging oxygen with the atmosphere. It takes oxygen in, it gives something else off, and that in turn helps it dry. And I'm using lead white here for my white, and I always use lead white, but I would especially recommend using lead white in the first layer of a painting, just because it's relatively lean, but it also dries fast. So this dried overnight, and it was not a problem to paint over it full strength the very next day. But this blending technique, normally what I tell people is you blend 1, 2, 3 and wipe it on a towel. And you can see me reaching down and wiping it on my hand, which is a towel. And you can see that I'm not exactly stopping every third time. I don't really mind. That's if you want to keep things very crisp and clean and you don't want a lot of out of control blending. But I just don't really mind if some of that purple gets into the red or the green gets on, whatever. I just don't really care what happens. Part of that process is paint it like you don't care. So, and that's kind of a joke, but on some level it's not. So here we're just looking at the state that it's in, and you can see it's not even good. Like there's nothing good about that, and that's the point. It doesn't need to be. So I'll come back to all that. I need to talk about what's going on at the moment. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking some painting medium and I'm scrubbing it on just that one orchid, and then I'm wiping it off. And now I'm taking a local color, which the orchid is white with purple spots on it, but I noticed that a lot of the white areas actually had some purple, so I went with this like purple pink, and I just put it everywhere that I put the medium. That's really important. If you put medium down and don't put paint on it, it's gonna crack, and it'll ruin your painting. So it's easy though. Just wherever you put it, put some paint on top. And so I'm wiping it off. And so by doing that, I push all the color in that area in one direction. In this case, a slightly lighter pink. And then I have that lubricated surface that happens because the paint's so thin. And I didn't thin the paint out at all. That's another really important thing. All the paint I'm putting on in every case here is full strength. Now, while you watch me just paint, this is the painting directly part. Everything I did so far is just getting us to here. And what I usually tell people is you put the medium on, wipe the medium off, you put the color on, you wipe the color off in order to set up a lubricated layer of paint for you to paint into the way that you paint. Don't let this methodology end up giving you, like, changing the way that you paint. That's not the point. So I'm just painting the way I paint here, and it ends up taking a really long time to work up this orchid. It's just got so much information on it. But you can see how it's going. I'm just trying to, since I have like the local colors already in from the laying in of that transparent color, and the first layer is already there, just generally laying out where things are, it's pretty easy from here to work out where a lot of your colors are going to be. But while we're watching how this is playing out here, to go back to the first phase where I was just kind of painting super fast and kind of painting like I don't care. The reason that I have that as part of the process is because I needed, when I originally came up with this, I needed a way to render flowers in one sitting, because flowers don't stick around. Now orchids do, but if you're painting any other kind of flower, they tend to go away after a while. So by basically getting organized, which is what I usually call what we're doing in that first phase, by getting organized in terms of your big colors and your big shapes, it sets you up to be able to start doing detail and finishing anything anywhere right away. And there's just a huge advantage there. And I wanted to make sure I said that. But now you can see that I'm on the second or third sitting. And I took the medium, put it on, wiped it off. I put some greens over the leaves. I put some Indian yellow over the roots and the dark part of the plant. And I'm off to the races here, just blocking in my greens. And, you know, I'm painting like I normally do. I'm trying to make sure that I'm not using the same green everywhere. Every chance I get, I'm switching it up to a slightly different green. And I'm making sure that if there's anything wrong with the drawing, I'm fixing it. If there's anything off about the value, I'm adjusting it. My main priority is shifting hue and making sure my values are as tight as I can keep them. And this part was a lot more fun for me to paint than the orchids. The orchids got a little too intense in terms of how much detail was there. And it was fun at the beginning, and then I kind of lost interest in it. But when I got to this part with the leaves and with the roots, it was just, I always had something new to think about, and it was just really interesting. I think the best passage in the painting is the roots and the opening of the basket, which the basket was kind of cool too. And I wanted to take a second here to talk about the role of the medium in this painting, because the first thing I want to say is that when you put the medium on and wipe it off part, if you don't have a medium to use, or if you're just not sure what to do there, you don't have to worry about that. It's not 100% necessary part of the process. It's just part of the way that I do it. You can skip it and just put the color on and wipe it off, and it'll be fine. The reason I use a medium is just because I have mediums I like that impart specific qualities to the paint, and it just, to me, it helps move things along a little bit better. For those of you who are interested and who might ask the question, what medium are you using? Specifically here, I'm using a medium called Roberson's medium, and it's made by jamescgroves.com. And it's just, I'm starting to realize that it's kind of, to me anyway, it's sort of the best all-around painting medium that I've come across. It does everything that you want it to do. Um, and it comes in a tube, so you don't have to worry about it drying out or mixing raw materials or whatever. But anyway, you can use a medium if you happen to have one, and any painting medium will work here for the purposes of what we're doing. But remember that you're not obligated to use one. The paint has oil in it, and the paint is plenty greasy, and the lubricated surface comes from the paint first and from the medium. There's so little medium when you put it on and wipe it off. There's so little medium mixing with the paint that you could get away with not using it. So as we wind this painting down to a finish, the last thing I want to say is all of the projects that we're doing in this group of projects on direct painting, they all have radically different starting points, and none of them are designed to produce like a cookie cutter result. The last thing I want as a teacher is for the students to have everybody come out with basically the same paintings. I want you guys to be able to bring what you can to the table in every one of these paintings. So there's nothing scripted about anything that I'm doing here. And as we're moving into the final stretch, you can see that I'm feverishly working on the finishing touches on the basket. And in the last few minutes of the painting, I just was going around and making a little adjustments, just trying to finish things up. And I kind of realized that the orchids needed a little more touch-up work. Their darks weren't dark enough. I manipulated the paint maybe a little too much while I was painting in that first sitting with the orchids, and I decided to expand the value contrast just a little bit. And you know, it's okay if you want to go back through and do some touching up after the paint's dry. Even though we're trying to finish our passages in one sitting, there's no shame in going back and touching things up.